Welcome to the latest in my series of MediaTel interviews with marketing leaders, in which we explore their media choices and habits in this rapidly changing digital world. Today I'm joined by Jason Wills, who's Marketing Director of Merlin Entertainments, the theme park operator. But he spent most of his career in the drinks business for companies such as Bacardi and Heineken, and he actually acquired a title at one point of Heineken UK's digital rock star. So welcome, Jason. That must have been a fun time.
Thank you, Torin. Yes, it absolutely was. It was definitely at the sort of after I'd spent probably 3 or 4 years getting to really understand the digital social media role. Heineken set up this global network, and I was the UK's representative on that network. And it was a great opportunity to share some of the really good stuff that I'd already done across those platforms, but also learn how that works at more an international level as well, and taken some of the international learnings across the Heineken group back into the UK.
What sort of things were they doing at that stage?
No, so this is going back now sort of 2 or 3 years, so it is real emergence of using the platforms that now that we're so used to, like Facebook and Twitter, and understanding what roles those platforms could play in more of a traditional marketing sense. So I guess one of the roles that I had whilst I was Heineken was launching Desperados across the UK. So looking at how we could scale social media to a very specific 18 to 24-year-old demographic, and I guess the model that we got to was very local but scaled across the rest of the UK, and it had experiential activity, sponsorship at festivals at the heart of it, but it also looked to bring in experiential activity across the pubs and bars that were located in a similar geography to where the festivals were happening. So basically this model then started to get used across the rest of the sort of the Heineken network, the countries that were looking to launch Desperados also.
And were you really pioneering, or were you looking at what other people were doing and saying, oh, we can tweak that, or was it really new stuff?
No, I think it was quite pioneering. I worked with a digital agency who had the real insight into some of the technical capabilities, but it was taking, I suppose, fairly traditional model in terms of you do experiential activity, you go to a festival, you do experiential activity in pubs and bars, but no one, I don't think, had ever connected them before. So the model, simplistically looking at the consumer, was you recruited them into Facebook with paid for advertising across Facebook and Twitter. You got them then to enter a competition to go to the festival. Once they're at the festival, they had an experience, focused quite a lot on live tweeting during the festival, because even at that time Twitter was seeing as a more appropriate platform for sort of live music. And once they'd been to the festival, we then retargeted them back on Facebook to go to an event, one of the pubs and clubs around the area. So I think it was about connecting individual bits of activity that had probably been done in silos before. And the most pleasing thing about the whole of that Desperados sort of activation or campaign was it absolutely moved the dial in terms of those traditional marketing metrics. So brand saliency, top of mind awareness, trial and frequency all moved significantly without any TV advertising.
Now, how different is Merlin as a business in terms of using digital?
Yeah, quite different actually. Much more of a TV-led business compared to the brands that I'd historically worked on. But I was very specifically recruited to try and improve the capability around those digital and social areas based on my previous experience. So what I've tried to bring is my learnings and my skills to what is in effect quite a different market. So I hadn't worked in retailing before, hadn't worked in theme parks before. So really just trying to find those 2 or 3 things that could work really well to improve the performance of, specifically thought part that I've been working on.
But TV is still the main driver.
Yeah, I mean, I think TV in the theme park business, you need to sell the dream. So selling the dream, TV, I think clearly has got a big role to play. And also in the attractions business, new news. So what is a theme park or an attraction doing new every year? So in terms of the traditional mass awareness, then TV clearly plays a role. And we touched on it in one of the sessions that if you can find the right ad breaks, so we touched on X Factor, where you can put a family in a room together and you can get them talking about an ad together, then that's the ultimate dream. So I think TV against specific audience at specific times definitely got a role to play.
And how does digital fit in? I mean, the extras and so on.
Yes, so I think you then start layering down to more specific audience types. So one of the big things I've done since I've been at Merlin is reposition Thought Park to more of a family audience. And one of the key things I had to do was reassuring parents that it was okay to bring their kids of sort of 9 and upwards. So there I started working with, did some activity with Mumsnet, some paid for activity, got 50 of their forum members to come down to Thought Park and then write within their forum, so very specific. I've worked with parent bloggers as well in terms of getting that relevant type of content out there, and also then scaled that through last season by doing paid advertising on Facebook in a very sort of targeted geographic way at a specific time of the year when I knew that they were coming into the market, so just before summer holidays. So the thing I like about digital and social, it does allow you to target very specifically in a very timely way, and then you can use appropriate platforms depending on what the demographic of the person you're targeting is.
Will digital become substantially bigger as a proportion of your budget over time?
I think it's proving success. So I think the more that we do and the more that we prove it works, then for me, particularly I think in the retail environment, there's got to be a real sense of if you can find people more specifically, more locally, then they're more likely to come than someone that happens to see an ad on TV. And we've just done a piece of activation around Fright Night where we've worked with vloggers, so YouTube vloggers, so 5 of them in effect that had subscribers, I think, of about 4.5 million. Did some paid pieces of content with them that has ended up with about 3.5 million organic views. So, fundamentally a different way to do it. Website visitation up 50% without any TV. So I think there's definitely evidence the model can work differently.
Does this help you seasonally? Because obviously you can't afford television all the year round, presumably.
Exactly. I mean, the model has been very much you do TV at Easter, May half term and summer. But you're right, we can't afford to be on TV the whole of the year. So from an always on strategy, digital and social seem to make a huge amount of sense because there's always going to be someone in the market that's looking to go to for a day out in the broadest sense, or hopefully a theme park in a more narrower sense.
And is that eating into your spend on other media, press, radio and so on?
I've been with Merlin 18 months, so certainly what I've seen change is probably regional press as one area where that was clearly an opportunity to target locally. And historically we've done very simplistic door drops, so I've never done one of those before, and we'd got good level of redemptions from those in previous years, but this year that's really tailed off. So I think maybe that's one example of where there's been a shift.
What sort of relationship do you have with your agencies, creative media and so on, and is that changing as a result of this new digital world?
Most important thing is to be integrated. Most important, and the second most important thing is making sure all the agencies that I'd be working with at any point in time are aligned to the broader strategy. And I've always been a massive advocate of that. So I don't see anything having changed recently compared to what I'd set up in the days I was at Heineken working on Tiger and Desperados. But I think having clear agency roles, everyone being digitally and social savvy, so understanding that what they were doing ultimately is probably about could be about some content ending up in an online channel, and always thinking about what the opportunities could be to extend that content further, that reach further.
Presumably there are great data opportunities. Is it telling you more about your audience, and if so, how are you using that?
Yeah, one of the things that we've done this year is focus a lot on annual pass, so the data that comes with that, we're able to understand where people are buying an annual pass from, how many times they're coming back, and then clearly through our ECRM strategy, trying to work out what we should be saying to them over a period of time to help them make a decision to come back. And what we found certainly on ECRM is the sort of the big new news that they've maybe already heard about on our website or seen on a TV ad. There's less interest in hearing about that again, and actually what they're more interested in hearing about is that specific event you're doing that weekend. So making sure all those platforms and channels work together, but are not necessarily saying exactly the same thing.
And what about your relationship with media owners? Could they be doing things better? Are there things they do that irritate you?
Always had a good relationships with the likes of YouTube, Twitter and Facebook, and I think that's really important as a client that you work with both the media agency and the media owners. Great relationship with Global Radio, who we did a partnership this year with for the breakfast show, Capital Breakfast Show. So I think and I go out of my way to make sure those relationships are strong. I think there's probably a point about coming more proactively to the client, having thought about what our issues or opportunities might be. So I get an inordinate amount of emails about, are you looking to redesign your website, redo your content? It's like, we'll take the time and effort to understand our business a little bit and then come with what you think might be a solution. So I think media owners probably could do similar.
And finally, what are your own media consumption habits?
So infuriatingly for my wife, probably on social media, we're quite an interesting family. She's a parent blogger, so we have a real shared common interest. I think I like Twitter a lot in terms of keeps me in touch with what's happening in the wider world, both news but also marketing. And I've also used it quite a lot recently to build relationships with some of the enthusiasts that exist within the theme park industry. So it's been a great way to do that, but also like Facebook, because I think that's great from keeping up with your friends and family. So a big social advocate, and do watch a bit of TV, usually on catch up.
Jason Wills, thanks very much.
Thank you, Torin.